Hi everybody, and thanks for tuning in to Toys, the Universe, and Everything. Today we are looking at the Retron 77. I'm going to be putting it through a playtest to see a number of games that hopefully will work, some won't work. Also going to be looking at a few different controller configurations just to answer some questions that may not have been hit yet by other people on the forums and on the YouTubes. So anyway, this is the Retron 77. Before I get into all the games I'm going to slap into this thing, let me tell you my capture device, my capture card, has a very difficult time keeping up with the flicker rate of an Atari. Okay, so it is HDMI, but there'll be some games that may not look great. And that's the fault of my equipment. I'll tell you some of the games. I know I'm going to put Donkey Kong VCS on the screen for a little bit here, and it looks great. It relies on a lot of flicker for Mario and Donkey Kong. It's a wonderful homebrew rendition of Donkey Kong, and I just want to let you know that you can see right here, Miss Pac-Man, the ghost, the flicker rhythm looks wrong. If you played this game on a CRT, on original hardware back in the day, you know kind of what it should look like. When you're playing a Retron through a TV normally, I can go ahead and tell you it'll look fine. But for me to be able to show you the games that don't work, unfortunately I'm stuck with the capture card I have, so keep that in mind. It does look fine on a regular TV when it's not being passed through, a computer capture card. One of my big complaints, though, I'll say this, was getting ready to film this. The SD card, the micro SD that Hyperkin gives you, the way it's formatted, an Apple Mac will not read that card. I could not. I had to dig an old Windows XP computer out of the closet to put some things on the card to test out today. So anyway, just some things to keep in mind. If you're a Mac owner, the Retron might be a pain for you unless you have an old Windows computer shoveled around the house somewhere, at least for adding ROMs or updating the firmware on the card or what have you. First thing I'll get out of the way. Those of you who've seen any of my videos before, you know that I have a hate-hate relationship with this controller, the Pro line, the 7800 Pro line, and you're going, well, dude, why do you care? This is an Atari 2600. It doesn't play 7800, and I know, but it's interesting because this controller works on my 78, does not work here, and you'll say, well, once again, that's a 7800 multi-button controller. You shouldn't expect it to. The interesting thing is, other 7800 controllers do work, and I'm going to show you some of them in just a little bit. But let me show you what happens when I start the game here with the Pro line plugged in, just because it's a hoot to see. Let the music play, and there she goes. She's having an epileptic fit in the middle of the screen. The Pro line does not work. It does kind of what it wants to do. I'm entering directions, and it is not acknowledging anything I'm telling it. So there's the Pro line. I'm going to pull that out, get it away from me. Now, I'm going to plug in this little beauty, which folks know you can get on the forums. If you search around the AtariAge forums any amount of time, you can track down one of these. These controllers are wonderful. They're 7800 compatible, 2-button functionality. So I'm going to plug this in. Alright, player 1. Reset. And it's doing the same thing. Alright, I'm going to pull it out. Just thinking about that menu. Maybe I confused it. You're really going to want to think about where you put this thing, in your entertainment setup. Alright, so now I've reset the system. And my not Pro line is working fine. I'll test it with a game. Button started the game. You can see me pressing directions. It's responding just fine. Why this controller works when an official Pro line does not. I have no idea. I'm glad it does. I was very much hoping I would be able to use this controller as my primary on this device. So, yay! If you have some of these, more power to you. It definitely gives you more options for playing. I do wish at some point that Hyperkin gives folks a quick key scenario for getting back to the menu or starting games on games that require you to press the reset button, because some of us, I don't want to get off my couch every time I start a new game of Frogger. That would get tedious. There's a lot of games that require the use of that button. Fire button will not start a lot of these games, so hopefully at some point they'll give us some kind of solution or workaround to start games, or a reset command on the controller. Anyway, so obviously Miss Pac-Man works. This controller works. Very happy to report both of those things. I'll pull it out. If you notice, it takes a second or two to decide to go back to the main screen. What's going to happen is when I hit a game that doesn't work, I'm going to make a fail pile right here. Alright, Miss Pac-Man works, so it doesn't go in the fail pile. Now, I had people asking about a number of games. The Parker Brothers titles in particular have been very problematic. So let's start with Spider-Man. Now, if my games don't work, it doesn't mean that the game doesn't work. It might mean that my copy is dirty, or that it might be problematic. I will say I had problems with Parker Brothers games in general. So here's Spidey. Spidey works. So that's a win. Popeye. This one I've heard does not work. I would love to say that I could report differently, but apparently I cannot, because Popeye is a blank screen. Just for the sake of argument, yeah, I blow in my cartridge. I don't normally do that. I'm just being silly, but just, humor me, don't judge. And still a blank screen. So Popeye goes in the fail pile. Reactor. That made a really odd click. That didn't sound good. Hey, Reactor works. That's good. This is one of the games, I have no idea how to play this game. I don't know what I'm doing. But I can confirm that the buttons work and it does something. Whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know what this game does. Okay, so Reactor. I'll educate myself about Reactor later on. Another one, Time Pilot. One of my favorites. And you're breaking my heart. Time Pilot is not coming up. I just played this one on my 78. I know the cartridge is clean. I just cleaned it. So this is a little disheartening. Let me see if it's finicky. Maybe try putting it in a slightly decreased level of insertion. But no, Time Pilot is a fail. Bummer. I was looking forward to that one. Star Wars Arcade. That does not look promising. Yes, no, maybe? That's a no. Reset? No. Alright. There's another no. Frogger. I'll say of and Frogger worked. That's good. Of all the NOT systems I have, all my Famiclones, and I have one of those AtGames Genesis systems, the Retro Freak. I'll say that so far the Retron is the most finicky system I own as far as reading cartridges. It is very finicky. That could be because my Atari games are probably the oldest in my collection. But I mean, it's entirely way more picky than my Heavy Sixer, my 7800, my 4-switch Woody. I've got multiples of each system, and they all play these games very well. The Retron is very finicky, very picky. So be sure, if you get one for yourself, have some rubbing alcohol and Q-tips ready to go to clean your cart connections. You're going to be doing that a lot, even with games that you think are very clean. So be ready for that. Empire Strikes Back. There we go. The Empire does strike back. It works. Q-works. Alright. And a lot of it has to do, some of it's going to be software failures, Kool-Aid Man is unplayable. I'll get to that one in a little while. Because of software. This is based on an older version of Stella. The software and Kool-Aid Man have problems. They don't like each other. But then a lot of the time, it's certain manufacturers also, because as you see, I've had numerous problems with these Parker Brothers titles, whereas the Atari Red cartridges, I have not had a problem with, and I'll show you right now. Pull out some red carts. The later Atari releases, later 80s. This is Donkey Kong from, what is this, the 88 release. See, works great. Solaris is a good game that I do not understand. Someone asked me to test this one out, so here's Solaris. It works. I don't know what I'm doing with this game, so don't judge. But there it is. I have no idea how this game works, but there it is on the screen. Now I'm in space. I don't know how I did that, or if the game did that. And now I don't understand this game. If it's not working properly, please tell me in the comments. Because I can't tell if this is how the game is supposed to work. But it does boot up. Donkey Kong Jr. Not that this is a good game. I despise Donkey Kong Jr. on the Atari. It is not a fun game. And I think I just hurt its feelings because it decided not to work. There's Donkey Kong Jr. with the Donkey Kong sprite ripped right out of the original Donkey Kong for 2600 by Coleco, and there's Mario again. I could never really get into this version of the game. Junior was never my favorite anyway. I'm a weirdo. I like Donkey Kong 3. There's Junior. Okay, I've now played it more than I intended to. All right, bye-bye, Junior. You work. Midnight Magic. Loads up just fine. Let's see. Let's go back. Most of you already know this one's not going to work. Pitfall 2. But it will work if you can manage to get it on the SD card. But it will not work as a cartridge. So that one goes in the fail pile. Spider Fighter. Someone requested Spider Fighter. So let's try that one out from Activision. And yes, Spider Fighter works just fine. Game still stresses me out, but there it is. I have to watch myself. I was about to put a game in the fail pile that worked. Okay, another request. Someone wanted to see if Freeway worked. Freeway does work. The chicken does successfully cross the road, unless I'm playing, because then the chicken is in trouble. The original Pitfall works. I think you can classify the system a fail if Pitfall doesn't work. But once again, it goes back to, you see, it's not, okay, Pitfall works. That copy of Pitfall does not work. So, it goes back to the system's very finicky, because this is the copy I usually use. Plays on my 78, plays on the Heavy Sixer, does not play on the Retron. So, finicky. Now let's get to some of the bummers. One of my favorite games, Kool-Aid Man. And it will start up. However, once it does start up, the game itself is actually unplayable. There's a glitch, and this is Stella. This is not the hardware or the cartridge. It is actually the software. This is the version of Stella that did not get along with Kool-Aid Man. So all he's going to do is bounce like crazy in the corner like that. So anyway, which is a shame, because I really enjoy that game. Probably still put it in just to stare at it. Hopefully, I think some folks have already worked on a way to get an updated version of Stella on here that does actually play the game. Now, some of the bigger bummers. The homebrews. I love homebrews. I love to get things from AtariAge. And so here's Stella's Stocking, which I often put in my system around the holidays just to hear the music. The games are really good, but unfortunately, it is a fail. And another one that bums me out, because I love this one, Berserk Voice Enhanced. I love Berserk, and I love hearing the game call me a chicken and telling me to fight like a robot. I won't be doing that on the 77 because it also does not work. It actually doesn't even do anything. I put the cartridge in and it doesn't even attempt to load it. So something about this cartridge, possibly because it is a game that's on the Melody board, I don't know. But it's a fail also. Another awesome homebrew that bummed me out, but it will not load. Because I love Tetris, and Chetri is a good game. I hope I'm probably saying that completely wrong. Another one that will not even boot. Halo will. Halo 2600, it will load. So there's Halo. So you can play as pixelated Master Chief in all his retro glory. I don't want to bore you with my terrible playing of Halo. I'm very bad at it. Halo goes in the win pile. This one made me sad. Dungeon. I really enjoy this one by David Weevil. He did a wonderful job. But the 77, for whatever reason, won't read it. Donkey Kong, the Pauline hack. That one does start just fine. Candy Catcher, a little more obscure, but I really enjoy this game, especially around, late October. It's cool to have a Halloween themed game to put in the system. It really looks like something that, Atari could have put out in the late 70s, early 80s. I love how it speeds up. So anyway, let's pull another one out. Shark Attack, an Apollo cartridge. Shark Attack loads up just fine. Here's some more bad news. Star Wars Jedi Arena. It's not going to do anything. And Tutankhamun. I actually own this arcade machine. I was very much hoping that this one would work, but it is not going to work. So my failed pile is filling up pretty quickly, if you noticed. Before I depress myself more, though, let's go with something that probably be fine. I'm going to put Millipede in here in just a second. I'm going to switch controllers. I've been using my 2-pad 7800 controller, 2-button 7800 pad, rather. And now, I've heard people say Genesis controllers don't work, and that is partially true. That is mostly true. But if you do have an adapter, it will. So I'm going to take, this is a 7800 adapter for Genesis controllers. I'm going to put it in. If you notice, I can still manipulate the menu just fine. And I'm going to put Millipede in. Select starting score. There we go. And if you notice, I am playing with this is a 6-button Genesis pad. It also worked with my Genesis arcade stick. Worked with 3-button pad. So, you know, you can't fault the controller for the terrible gaming skills of the person holding it, but hey, it does work as long as you have one of the adapters. Alright, so there's Millipede, and we're on a Genesis pad right now, so that's pretty cool that works. Also, this thing, this is actually a modified NES pad that I got on the forums back in the day by a user called the Golden Axe. He used to mod NES pads for us, and this is an actual NES pad modded to work as a 7800 pad. And it works just as you would hope that it does. It really feels weird using a NES pad on an Atari system, but for mini games, very cool. Let's see, let's go, here's Crow. Loads up. You can start the game. And you can die very quickly, but there it is. E.T. So there's E.T. Once again, still using the NES pad. One more controller to throw on there. This is a modded Space Invaders plug and play. That's also modded for the 7800. It's just very interesting to me that all these things work except for an actual Pro line. I'm still terrible at this. Anyway, there's E.T. Should you have the very interesting urge to play E.T., there you go. There's one other subset of games. I mean, there's other games that don't work. I don't want to bore everybody going through every game in my collection. I wanted to hit the ones that people actually asked about, and some other, oddities and interesting points like the homebrews. But I'll say this: here's a text label Space Invaders, right? And it works. I say that to jinx myself, but it did work. Let me try it again. Okay, so there's Space Invaders. But I say that to say this. Text label, right? Not probably the oldest version of a text label, but if I go into my collection here, and I'm going to pull out some of these earlier text labels. Okay, you see the numbered Blackjack, Basic Math, Slot Machine, which is an earlier one, Miniature Golf, Flag Capture. These games. All right, these are games that all work on my Heavy Sixer and my 7800. I'll start with Blackjack. Now this is a text label, has number 51 Blackjack on the end. I cannot get these things to run. After cleaning them, testing them on the other systems, which they work on, I cannot get these early text labels to work on the Retron. And the only thing I can think of is maybe it's where the teeth are lining up. Because these older games, the teeth line up a little differently. But it could also come back to, the Retron's very finicky. Basic Math, it's not even acknowledging it's in there. So, I don't know. Slot Machine. And see, nothing happens. The game screen doesn't move, doesn't black out. It's just not even acknowledging the cartridge is in there. Miniature Golf. Another text label. I don't know if there's something different about the boards on these text label cartridges. If it's just that they're older, thinner. It looks like the teeth are not as long as they are on other games. Maybe it's not making a connection. All I can think of. But it's not reading them. So anyway, so all the text label, they go in the fail pile, at least as far as real hardware goes. Now I'm going to move on. I did have someone ask me if I could test Bubsy, and off the micro SD card, yes, Bubsy absolutely does work. Now, granted, I've never played this before, and I really don't know what I'm doing, but it's really a pretty game. I like how Bubsy animates. I remember working in a video game store when Bubsy came out for Genesis, and it's kind of cool to see him on an Atari. That's a really cool. I like the way he animates. I like his color scheme. Really cool game. I'm going to have to mess with it more later and see what I can figure out about the Bobcat. All right, so there's Bubsy. And I'm not going to reset the system. I've figured that the best way to get out of an SD game, is to simply put a game in, take it out, and that'll get you back to the menu. So, Pitfall 2 does work as a ROM. Donkey Kong VCS, there's one. And I'll say again, I know my capture card kind of mutilates the footage of these games that require a lot of flicker. I did play this on my other TV, my intended home for this thing, and Donkey Kong and Asteroids, they looked fine. They looked absolutely wonderful on a TV. The flicker was at the right frame rate, so it was absolutely playable. So anyway, there's Donkey Kong VCS. Anyway, so I'll say this. I like the Retron 77. I wish I could say it was like a great package out of the box. I'm hoping there are some updates. Some of these games, if you look here at my stack of fails, these are really good games. These are games that I play quite a bit. Popeye, Time Pilot, Star Wars. Those games I play constantly, and they don't work. Super Cobra, that game makes me curse. Pitfall 2, Stella's Stalking, Berserk, the homebrews, Dungeon and Cheddary and Berserk, those games I play on a weekly basis. Those are kind of deal breakers that they don't work. Tutankham, like I said, I have a soft spot for that when I play it frequently because I've owned that arcade machine before. The text label games not reading, those older text label games, that's just strange. I'm not saying I'm hurting over not being able to play slot machine, but come on, it's an Atari cartridge from the first year or two of its release. Those things should, work. But there are a lot of good games that do play. I was hoping for better compatibility. Having to run certain games like Pitfall 2 off the micro SD, it makes it kind of infuriating that you can only put 18 games on the micro SD. You would hope that you'd have more slots. I'm still kind of my 7800 pads work, but for some reason it was too expensive to make that 7800. I know it's because they're using Stella. It would be nice to be able to play 7800 on the Retron 77. But yeah, the homebrews need to be solved, because that's a big part of the community now, being able to go to the AA store and pick up awesome new homebrews, like Space Rocks and Draconian. There's just awesome games. There's too many don't works. They're not obscure. They're not weird titles. These are like relatively important games that don't work, and that's bad. I am glad that the controller situation. If you're a 7800 owner, hey, you've got options. And if you're not, hey, you have a good reason to go buy one of those 7800 Nest pads or get a Genesis adapter, because those give you way more options. I'm hoping for a Bluetooth option for this thing, at some point in the future. Hopefully something that'll put a reset and a mode button on it, because I'm old and lazy and I need wireless. I have kids. If you watch my videos before, I have kids. And kids and wires are dangerous for anything. So anyway, guys, I hope this helped some of you out. I hope I hit all the games that I was asked about. I think I did. Almost forgot. Someone did ask about Junior Pac-Man, and absolutely it works. I'd probably be throwing this thing away right now or mailing it back if it didn't. There's Junior. Once again, like I said, Miss Pac-Man, Asteroids, the games that require a lot of flicker, they do look fine on a normal TV. My capture card, I don't do a lot of HDMI capture. I don't do any HDMI. This is the first time. Usually I'm using an S-video capture situation. But, yeah, they look fine on a normal TV, so please forgive the mess. Guys, thanks for tuning in. If this helps some of you, I'm more than happy. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments. If you want me to test something else in the future, if there's something else I can test for you and answer you back in the comments, let me know, and I'll be happy to. It won't take me but 5 seconds if I have it to put it in the machine and turn it on. Please like and subscribe, and guys, good gaming, and thanks a lot.